Hi Arthur, how you doing?
How are you doing, Ross? Everything all right?
I'm good, mate. I'm good. It's very warm out there, mate. It's not
Yes.
like where.
Yeah, we've been out this morning to see our son and Leanne, his partner, for half an hour. So that was nice to get out and out of the house for half hour. Social
Yeah,
distancing, obviously.
of course, of course. I mean, I went for a walk over the bay earlier. There seemed to be a lot more people around than there have been over previous weeks. So I'm not sure whether everyone's getting sick of the four walls of the house now or not, but there seems a lot more people about.
I think so. I think it's getting to the point now. Like we've been self-isolating for this would be the 12th week, really. Um, I think it's getting to the point now where people are getting a little bit fed up with it. I just hope they don't treat it like the flu and think we'll go out and if I catch it, I catch it.
Yeah, I mean it's one of those things, and I mean I can appreciate that people are bored with it, but the virus isn't bored; it's still out there. So yeah, as long as everyone stays careful and stays safe, then hopefully it'll all be okay, and we can get back to some sort of normality of life anyway.
Yeah, I don't think we'll ever get back to normal, especially with businesses, restaurants, cafes, especially down the bay there. The restaurants, how they're going to cope. I don't know. Like if you've got a restaurant that holds 100 people, you won't be holding 100 people again.
No, no. I mean, and same for cinemas, theaters. You know,
Pubs as well. Pubs are the same. Can you keep 2 meters from the bar? If you want to go and get a pint, you've got to keep 2 meters from the bar, which,
I'm not sure my arms are that long, to be
well,
honest.
exactly.
Yeah.
So there was a landlord on the telly yesterday, and they were in the lounge where he is, and he says it's an impossibility. He said
Mm.
to keep people 2 meters from anywhere. So it's going to be very difficult. But you mean, hopefully when it eases off or they get a vaccine for it, we can get back to normal. But at the minute, I think it's with us for a while.
Well, as soon as we're back to normal, we'll have to do one of these over a pint down the bay somewhere.
I think so. That'll be cracking. We'll drag a few more in on it.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
We'll drag a few romantic poets in.
Oh, 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 oh. I'm not sure we want the romantics involved, but we'll try.
But there we are.
It's
But
too nice.
no, it's second and see at the minute.
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So, well, so great response to last week's little chat that we had. So I thought, well, let's have another conversation about a few things. And you you brought up the subject of misspent childhoods towards the end of the last podcast, and we were talking about snooker and a few other things. So I thought maybe this time we could go through some childhood memories and keep it, PG-13, obviously, but maybe share a few poems each as well. And yeah, just kind of reminisce about those sort of the simpler times then. And I know me. I mean, you can see the painting behind me, which is a lockdown gift from my 4-year-old niece to bring a bit of colour in you. And I write about her quite a lot in my books because I'm quite jealous of that young sort of unbound imagination. Life hasn't restricted how she thinks or any sort of there's no limitations to her imagination yet. She's not drowned in facts and rules and I'm quite jealous of that because I think her imagination is then unbound. And so I'm not sure what this is. I'm going to call it postmodern German expressionism. But I like it, so it's brought a bit of colour into the office here. So yeah, so I thought if we could touch on a few things. You talked about well, I mentioned blackberry picking last time, and you were on about picking winberries and snooker and a few things. So and obviously the mining as well in Wales, which is completely a permanent fixture in our history and in our memories. So maybe we could sort of do some poetry and talk about things like that, just to change the subject.
Yes, I think you're on the right lines there, Ross. As you know, I was born and bred in Caira.
Hmm.
My father was a miner. Most of my immediate family were miners, going back to my great grandfather. Um, there were 2 coal mines within the space of 2 miles, and then there was St. John's, which was a mile further down. So you had 3 coal mines, all working coal mines. Everybody was working. All the men were in the pits. My mother worked in the arsenal during the war. She was earning good money there as an overseer in the munitions factory there. And obviously she married my father in the late 40s after the war, and she never went back to work. She brought the 6 children up. My father was down the pit, obviously. So we had a fabulous upbringing in Cairo. We didn't have a lot, but what we had a lot of love. And not only from our parents, but basically from everybody in the village. Everybody knew everybody. Everybody was an uncle or an aunt. Fabulous times to grow up. We used to make our own sort of pleasures. We used to make our own gambos and be up the mountain on slides and building dens and stuff like that. I don't think the children of today, you're talking about your 4-year-old niece, I don't think she'll comprehend that, because times have moved on. You're talking like 70 years, or 60 years. It's more sort of technology now with the youngsters, isn't it? You've got like 4, 5, 6-year-olds on computers, and they know their way around a computer better than us.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So they're a different generation, but with our poetry, I'd like to think it could take them back to perhaps how it was. It'll never be the same again. Our valleys, where you were from, they'll never be the same again. Was it a good thing or a bad thing? I don't know. But I've got special memories from Cairo. And like I say, I've done a few poems, mostly mining poems, obviously, but there's 1 or 2 about Cairo and things that occurred in my wife's growing up, obviously.
Well, do you want to read one?
Yeah, I'll do the first one. I call this. It's called Now But a Memory. It's about my village in Cairo, and what happened one day. I went up to see my auntie Eileen, because she's the only sort of relative I've got up there at the minute, except for some cousins who I haven't seen for many years. But I see my auntie Eileen quite often through the year. And I drove up to the top of Cairo, where the Monkey Pub used to be, and I looked down the valley and shut my eyes, and I can see it as I was as a child. And then I opened my eyes, and it's completely different. You got a housing estate there. The tips have been flattened. Loads of cars in the streets. Hardly any kids out playing. So I wrote this one. It's called Now But a Memory, Cairo. The village once vibrant, work did abound. 3 times a day, the hooter would sound. Looked up the lanes, like black ants they marched, covered in dust, dry-mouthed and parched. Halcyon days in the valley of coal, brave men gave their lives, bodies and souls. Childhood memories so vivid and bright, the miners on top, a wonderful sight. They worked hard, drank, lived life to the full. Hard men they were, they talked with no bull. My dad was small, sinewy and strong. In his mind's eye, miners could do no wrong. Let's not forget the mothers and wives, nurtured the kids all through their lives. A breed that would stand up and fight, put up with so much when money was tight. I returned to my village a short while ago. Gone are the pits, there's nothing to show. Boarded up shops, all on the dole. Community ravaged, now with no soul. Like when I was growing up in Cairo, my main road, Cairo Road, you had 3 butcher shops, 2 bakers, numerous greengrocers. And as I was driving up the valley, I was looking at each side of the road. The club was boarded up, 2 clubs boarded up. The greengrocers now have been turned into houses, been bought by people and turned into houses. So there's hardly anything there. There's 1 or 2 shops. You had 3 fish and chip shops within like 400 yards. and it's like desolate. It's like a skeletal of what it was. You know what I mean? And I know that a lot of our valley villages are exactly the same. But fabulous memories. Shut your eyes and you go back. I go back 65, 70 years.
Yeah, it's it's ingrained, isn't it? I mean, I remember when, you know, one of my first memories of being sort of a child and living, and we all lived on Penford Khyber Road. Um, and we all lived on Penford Khyber Road. We were in one house, and my great grandmother was across the road. My grandparents were 5, 6 doors up. My auntie, uncle, and my cousin were then another 10 doors up from them. And everything was kind of in one place. And I remember going to the local shop, and I remember I had a neighbor that used to help me with the Rubik's Cube. She was incredible with the Rubik's Cube, and an elderly lady, but she would just do it, and it was incredible. And you kind of remember all those sort of things, and you're right. I don't think the modern or the current generations have had that experience at all, and maybe everything has changed too much to go back to that. But you mentioned a key word for me then, which was love. And I think if this if this outbreak that we're dealing with and this lockdown that we're dealing with has taught us anything, and that for all the technology that we have, which is incredible, and the music and the computers and iPods and all that sort of stuff, there's still frustration. And that frustration is we are missing that human contact, and that human contact is love. So, I think that has been the positive lesson of this lockdown. I think there's a realization of the things that really do matter. And it might not be shelves full of books or CDs or anything, or computer games, or finishing a computer game and having the best score. It maybe not be that, because really fundamentally the thing you're aching for and the thing you're missing is to sit down with your friends and have a beer, or to hug a family member, or for some normality. I mean, it's I think hopefully people will take that lesson from this, and I think hopefully communities will be better for it in the end, despite the horrific loss and everything that's going on now. It is sort of shown us what really matters, and what really matters is being alive, being healthy, and having people you care about that you can spend time with. So hopefully that lesson will come through, and maybe we can take something positive from this virus, which has completely taken over our lives.
I'm sure we will, Ross. I've noticed far more sort of camaraderie certainly in my street. You know what I mean? I live in a fabulous little street here. I've been here 40 odd years. I know most of the neighbours, but I don't know them all because they're round the corner. But what this has done, especially on the Thursdays, brought us all out, and we talk, shouting and talking to each other. You know what I mean? I think that's going to stop, because I think even the NHS nurses and doctors now are a little bit fed up of that. I think they've taken it a little bit too far, and I think they seem to think that we've done enough of praising. Let's get down to getting back to normal. Mm-hmm. So yes, I think it will change people's sort of perception of neighbourhoods. You look what's happening in America now. You know what I mean? God forbid we have anything like that over here.
Yeah.
But there again, you're talking about America. It's a different animal. America is a totally different animal to the UK, and it's completely out of control there at the minute. Yeah. Luckily over here, there is a semblance of control, because we are policed. We want the police to behave the way they behave at this minute in time. But no, I think it's going to change. It's going to change everything, really. I think everything's going to change from now on. So anyway, give us one of your childhood memories. Come on, give us.
Well, you mentioned snooker last time, and that sort of took me back to the as a child. This is probably where it stops being, and don't do this if there's kids watching. But I remember going to the Workman's Hall in Mountain Ash when I was a kid. I mentioned my grandfather last time that we used to walk for miles, and one of the things he loved and he was very good at was snooker and billiards. And so on some afternoons we go for a walk. We'd walk up to Mountain Ash, and he was from Miskin, not far from the school I went to. And we'd walk up to the Workman's Hall, or we'd walk over to the Cat in Newtown across the other side of the valley. But when we went to the Workman's Hall, we always had a game of snooker. And it's one of those memories that when you think about it, like you mentioned brilliantly in that poem, then the sounds of Cairo, the sound of the bell. And the Workman's Hall for me generates this smell and the sounds of the floorboards and that sort of real beer sort of smell that you used to get in pubs. And of course, men were smoking then, and they were professional. They go there in the morning, they sit there all day drinking beer and smoke, and then they go home. But Grandad and I used to go, and we play snooker. And I thought, well, one of the things I wanted to write down when I was doing the book Fly Tipping was I kind of wanted to record that. And so I wrote a poem called Snooker at Workman's Hall. And it's dedicated for David Dye Lewis, my grandfather. And so hopefully what I've done is I've caught that feel of that place and that time. The old man clutched a half glass tight. Its amber melted broth sipped and never gulped, resting it on the old oak shelf. He took chalk between his sturdy thumb and half index, scratched the waiting tip, then reached out across the emerald messer, slicing spheres into gaping pouches. The young man watched and studied, ignoring smacks of nasal tang, the old board sticky floor and the stale beer trails, the noisy crunch and slap of hunched beer cradlers and the smoky hue of indoor clouds, waiting for Grandad to miss one and knock his own pocket bound. So that's that little shard of watching someone play snooker, because he was very good. And, and sometimes it was like, you put the 10 pence in to put the light on over the table. And sometimes it was like 10 pence to play hold the stick, because you just watched him knock all the balls around. And, you're just waiting to get a shot. And one of the things I loved about him was he never indulged me in that sense of, oh, go on then, boy, you have a shot now. So if we're playing snooker, we are playing snooker. And you will wait your turn and you will follow the rules, and I loved that. But like I said, sometimes it did lead to several minutes of waiting there, leaning on the stick, going, I'd like a go now, Grandad, to be honest.
Like I say, my father taught us all to play snooker. We five boys and my sister, obviously, but certainly the boys. He taught us all from a young age. I must have been about 6, knee high to the table, obviously. Mm-hmm. And in the institute where we played, there were 6 tables. As you came up the steps and into the hall, which was all marble, all the floors were marble, and with the seats, and the seats were higher than the tables, so you were looking down on the tables, and you were 2 down the bottom, 2 in the middle, and 2 up the top. Now the 2 up the top were always covered, right? The only time they were played on was by the men, and it was usually in the evenings. So when you started playing snooker, you obviously started playing on the bottom 2 tables, and then you progressed up to the middle 2, and then when you were proficient, then you could play on the top tables. And Phil Thomas, who ran it, who was a 100 breaker, he's a fabulous snooker player, Mr. Thomas was, and he used to teach us as well. And I remember going in there the first time I went in there then to play, and he pulled me to one side and he said, "You can play on the top table, Arthur, with your brother." And I said, "Well, they covered, Mr. Thomas, take the covers off and get the balls." So then you're on the top table. I think I must have been about 10, playing with my brother Norman, who's 12. And then all my mates coming in behind were like 14 and 15. And they got to go on the bottom table or the middle tables because they weren't that proficient. But I was living in the snooker hall. As soon as I finished school, I was down the snooker hall, 6 days a week. So those memories, and you're playing with the men. And then the men would come in, like Billy Phillips, who just passed away. And he'd say, "Come on, Arthur, here's 6 pence, put it in the light." And I put it in the light. And all I would do is pick the balls up. Nothing else. I'd have one shot in half an hour because he was brilliant snooker player, 100 breaker. He'd break 100 break practically every game.
Yeah.
But you're there, standing with your cue, you're 10, and all your mates are coming in, and they're going on up, and you were standing there like quite proud with your cue, but you're only having about one shot. In fact, you're picking all the balls up, you are. But you're there, your chest is out, thinking, oh, I'm on the top table, like. So those type of memories, you won't have that again. It's something that you'll never forget. I won the handicap up there. I was 12 when I won the big handicap in the snooker hall. I must have in prize money, I must have had about 30 quid, which is a lot of money then. And fabulous times. We've got no snooker halls now. They're all sort of. Ours was burnt down. They burnt our snooker hall down in Cairo. Unbelievable. And it was the focal point. You had the pictures just 2 minutes away. The picture house. And they were at the snooker hall, and you're either in the picture house or in the snooker hall. But yes, the fabulous times they were. And like I say, each brother was the same. My father never treated us any different. One was taught, they were all taught.
Yeah.
And he was quite a disciplinarian, my father. You had to be polite. You had to look after people. And the other thing about that is because it was such a small village, everybody knew you.
Yeah.
So you couldn't really get away with anything. Like if there was a fire up the forestry, I can guarantee you that people knew who set it on fire.
Yeah.
Do you understand me? I've been up the forestry helping the man to put the fire out, an accidental fire. And I'd come home and my mother said to me, have you started a fire? Because I'd be stinking of smoke. And that's the way it was. He said, no, ma'am, no, we've been up the forestry with the... And what it used to be, as you went into the forestry gate, I think there were 8 poles with conveyor belt in like a big rectangle on these poles, and they were to beat the fire out. You know what I mean? They were that thick, and you'd be there with a man, and you'd be thinking, ooh, I'm going to put the fire out. Like, not like today, start them, you're putting them out. It's times have changed, and I think that's the reason why these kids are setting fires. They don't understand what they are doing because I don't think they've ever been taught it.
Yeah.
To look after the forestries and the rivers. It's just I chuck a Tesco trolley in the river, like that type of thing. Where if my father caught us doing anything like that, he'd look out. You had to look after your village. I think sadly that's gone a little bit. I don't know why, but there we are.
Yeah,
so that's that.
Yeah, it's lots of change.
And I don't think for the better. You know what I mean? Don't get me wrong. I don't think it's for the better. I know people say, "Oh, you're old fogey. You're living in the past." I'm not living in the past. I just try to tell people how it was.
Yeah.
And even in my poetry, how things were like the First World War, how it was. Bloodshed, carnage, 15-year-old boys. You try telling a 15-year-old boy today, sign up and go to war, like.
Yeah.
You go, I'm not going to war, you're fighting a war. Because it's been drummed into them that war's not the be all and end all of everything, which it isn't, obviously. But anyway, I'll give you another one here now.
Great.
This one is, I titled this one The Runaway, right? Now, you probably heard of The Runaway, haven't you? No.
Well,
have you heard of The Runaway?
The Bon Jovi song, Runaway?
No, what used to happen in Cairo, right? As you know, times are hard, right?
Yes.
Every miner used to have these loads of coal, right? So if you were working in the pits, you were all right for coal. But if you weren't, you had to buy it, obviously, or purchase it off a coalman.
Yeah.
So what would happen in Cairo, as you walked up to the colliery, the screens where all the trucks were, the 20-ton trucks full of coal. On the right-hand side, about a quarter of a mile from the colliery, was the runaway. And basically what that was, when the loco or a loose truck run away, somebody let the brakes off, it would come down the incline, and they changed the points, and it'd go up the runaway. which is a short length of track with two big buffers at the end. And the truck would go down, run up the runway, smash into it, and topple over.
Right.
Well, now and again, it would be done deliberately. Somebody would leave a 20-ton truck go from the screens down the runway, and somebody changed the points. And it would go up the runway, smash into it, and topple over, 20-ton. And I can guarantee you, within half an hour, there's no coal left. They come up the street with all sorts of baths, buckets, wheelbarrows, and they clear it. I watched them doing it. Unbelievable. It's like if an army come up the street. Now, the police then never had panda cars or anything like that. It was the local Bobby. And I can guarantee by the time he came, there's nobody there. But they didn't mind, right? It was like a done thing, really, you know. And then everybody would have coal, wouldn't he? So I called it the runaway, right?
Okay.
Runaway. Under the screens, the deed would be done. A truck runs away, at least 20-ton. The brake released by someone unknown. Away down the track, at speed it would go. Crowds gathered quick, the bounty in sight. Call for the families to help with their plight. Don't let it pass, a voice loud would shout. Change the points quick, time's running out. Points change as ordered, the truck losing speed. Straight up the gradient, buffers ahead. Then with a crash, the truck gets derailed. Toppling over, the bounty revealed. Barrows and buckets out of the blue. Coal duty picked like ants, it's their due. Lookouts kept watch for coppers aplenty. By the time they arrived, the trucks, they were empty. Times were hard in the valleys those days. Coal that was scavenged, kept cold nights at bay. Back to the future, with my cover now blown. Yes, you have guessed, I was that unknown. No, I never let a truck go, but I certainly changed the points.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic.
So, you mean, we're only young, you know, you're 9, 10, 11 years of age. And the NCB didn't mind, I don't think. The police certainly didn't mind, you know, when they got there, you know, all they do then, they come down, put the track back and take you back up the screens. But they did catch a few, obviously, but I think it was one of those things, the police were like, if we catch 1 out of 100, well, happy days, like. But so that's the runaway. That's and you know, when the poems, once you describe to people, especially older people, they shut their and they can see it.
Yeah.
They can see it coming down the track, going up, toppling over, and all of a sudden, all these people come like ants. Unbelievable. And mostly women. Oh yeah.
Now, one of the guys that when I do some book events is a guy that comes and helps me out, and his name's Keith Shankland, and he's originally from Gurnos. And we only found out recently that he knew my father from when my father was younger, and he used to tell some fantastic stories. And the runaway is a story that he's told me a few times about how him and his friends and the neighbours would go out and fill bags full of coal and take them home and all this sort of stuff. But one of his best stories was he just graduated from the mining college, I think it was in Aberraman or around there. And then they sent him down to Khyber pit to do some work because they had, you know, nothing to do for the rest of the week. And they said, well, go down the pit and do some work. So they sent him down to Khyber, and the foreman or the manager in Khyber didn't know they were coming. So these 5 boys turned up, and they said, oh, we're here for the work experience. And the foreman said, don't know who you are, mate. Don't know who you are. Why are you here? And he said, well, they've sent us down to work. And he said, well, I got nothing for you to do. And he said, well, we're here now. He said, you know, the first thing in the morning this was as well. And the foreman said, I'll tell you what. He said, see all that coal in that truck there? They said, yeah. He said, well, move all that coal into that other truck there for me. So they went on, fair play. They were there for hours, shovels, you know, moving all this coal. They had their lunch, and then they went to see the foreman after lunch. And they said, oh, you know, boss, we've We moved all that coal over now, like you wanted. What do you want me to do now? And the foreman said, all right, really good. He said, move it all back.
Straight down.
So yeah,
Well,
definitely. So you will do something.
yeah, I wrote a poem about my father, and it's called "Put the Coal Away." I might read it later, but I got another one before that. If we, I might do it next time. But that poem is typifies that as well. Put the coal away, I call it, and it's unbelievable. It's unbelievable what he did. I couldn't believe my eyes what he was doing. Honestly, I must have been about 6. My brother Norman would be like 8, and Billy be a bit older, 10. And what he did, I looked at Norman. I said, he's off his rocker. But you know what I mean. That's the way they were.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, I mean, I remember, like I said, when we were on Penrith Khyber Road, and there was just one street down Arcade Terrace it was, and then there was another street, and then that's when the valley really dropped off, and you could see the river, and just down on the top there, on the other side, you could see the old pithead baths. You know, and by the time I was young, they were, you know, starting to fall down, and like the Max Boyce song, you know, the pithead baths are a supermarket now, and you could see all that, and it was amazing for me looking back now to think, you know, my father, my grandfather, obviously all worked on that mine there, and you know the places where I would go out with my grandfather for walking and go blackberry picking, and you know some of the best blackberry cutches and bushes were all in these sort of sites. And you know what I remember especially in just at the bottom, Miskin and Mountain Ash, is you come down and you'd walk up the road as if you were going to Mountain Ash itself. Then you cross the train tracks, and then the navvy yards, they used to call them, and you sort of go through the navvy yards. It would be very quiet, and then just round the back there would be these incredible blackberry bushes. You know, blackberries like your thumb, big,
Oh
juicy,
yeah.
and you just fill bags and bags full of them, and take them home. But yeah, it's strange that these icons and of our history, they have evolved into other things, and they mean different things to different people. I mean, even you know people my age and a little bit older than me have no concept really of what it was like to be a miner,
No, no, no.
worked on a mine. Um, I think we covered plenty of it in school, you know, especially Welsh history that was sort of drummed into us in school, and so all that stuff is very fresh in our minds, and we're aware of it. And there's an appreciation of it. But like I think we said last time, looking back to look back on it now, especially you know children like my niece's age now and older, even no comprehension of what these men did and what they went through. You know, it's a lot. But what's great is you've got poets like yourself keeping it alive, and I think you know I hear that line as well. Right? You know, you're living in the past, right? But actually, you're not. What you're actually doing is you're bottling the past for people so that they can have a little taste of it and a little feel of it. And I think that's why poetry is so important, because you won't get that feel from a history book
No.
or from a textbook. But with poetry, you can give somebody the sound of something, the smell of something, the feel of it, and sometimes it's just enough to read a poem and go off and then explore the subject more. I remember when I was studying English at GCSE, I remember the first time I ever read The Grelbull Man by Seamus Heaney, which is a poem he wrote about an Iron Age body that was preserved in a peat bog. And then they dug him up and they found him, and he was in Growbell, sorry, and they called it The Grelbull Man. And I remember reading that, and just the poem itself is, I don't think anything better has ever been written. But it actually made me then go off and get the book and read more about these bodies that were being found, and why they were in peat bogs and why they were preserved the way they were. So that's why poetry is important, because you can reach someone with a snippet, a little light into the dark of the past, which you've done brilliantly there with that Runaway. I absolutely love that.
I put the telly on the other day. I like the old films, like Talking Pictures and stuff like that. And it was like the other morning I put it on, and there was this coal mining film on there, you know, with John Gregson in it. It was a Scottish one, it was,
Right.
about a disaster up in Scotland in a pit. And I'm looking at it now, and they mention the peat and the glacial flood and stuff like that. And I thought, I'm sure that's a poem. I've written that poem. So I go back, and it's about the Knockshinnach coal mining disaster. Now, I wrote that poem about 3 years ago. And when I read it back now after watching the film, I thought, "God, that's it." Like, that's what happened. It was a glacier that had been frozen for millions of years on top of a peat bog, and it just gave in, and it just went straight down. And I think 13 got killed, and then they were down there for 3 days. They were. So I'd like to think, like, if anybody reads it from Scotland, can read it, shut their eyes, and think, yeah, that's it. And if they watch the film as well. So yeah, you're right what you say. I think there's nothing like you read a poem, shut your eyes, and you're there, like you're there. And I think that's good about it. Not all poetry does it to you, don't get me wrong. But I mean, I think the majority of poetry does. The older poetry, you go back like Shakespeare and stuff like that, perhaps people don't get today. I don't know, especially youngsters, they might read and say, well, it's not for me. They're more modern, aren't they? All types of poets around now. And the older people look at them and think, oh, what's that? But the youngsters love it. It's like graffiti, isn't it? I love graffiti personally, in the right place. I think it's brilliant. Old people hate it.
Yeah.
They think, oh, it's rubbish. But it's not, it's art.
But I think that's when it becomes the problem. So with your your Shakespeare's and even Chaucer before him.
Yeah.
And because it then becomes this art form, right, it stops actually being what it was meant to be. And what it was meant to be was a snippet of communication between a reader and a writer. And once you label something art, the way you look at it becomes different completely. I mean, I've said it a number of times, and I remember I was talking to Kerry Stennett on Radio Cardiff about this, and he called me a poet a couple of times, and I said, well, I don't want that term. I don't like that term.
No.
I am a writer of poetry.
Yeah.
I don't consider myself a poet, and the reason I said that and we talked about it was because it's actually not up to me if I'm a poet or not. It's up to you, right? So if you read something of mine and you go, okay, that's poetry. You've written a poem. A poet has written this. That's up to you. It's the same as a painter. It's the audience that decide if he's an artist or not. Everybody's a painter. Everyone's probably looking at Georgia's painting now and deciding if she's an artist or not.
That's right.
And it's that subjective thing, and I never wanted the weight of that title, and I still don't want it now. And if I ever get to a point where I kind of feel like, oh, I've been a poet there, I tend to give myself a bit of a slap.
I don't think you get. If you'd said to me 4 years ago, people are calling you an authentic poet, I think, what's that? What is that? Because that's how I'm described by loads of people now. And I think to myself, well, it's just poetry. You mean, yeah, but I can understand it. They go, I can understand what you're writing, and I think that's half the battle. And I mean, I wrote one the other night for the WASPy women. You know what I mean? I put on my Facebook any subjects, and a lady said, "Can you write one about the WASPies?" Well, I knew what they were. So I write it. Don't take me long. I write it, and I send it to her. No, she sent it everywhere. I think it's all over Britain, because they're like an organisation. Do you understand me? There's 3 million of them.
Yeah.
There's 3. No. And I suppose they've read it this morning and think, yeah, that's us. That's the WASPies. That's what it's about. And I think, happy days. Happy days. So, yeah, you can get to so many people today. You couldn't years ago, and you didn't have computer, you didn't have Facebook, you didn't have Twitter, that type of stuff. Today, now you can write a poem and put it on Twitter, and you'll have like 1,000 hits or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Not that you want it, but... I don't get no. I put a poem on. If I don't get any likes, it doesn't worry me. You know what I mean? It's happy days. Like I write it and that's it. If people like it, they like it. If they don't, they don't.
Yeah.
Simple as. But I like other people to read my poetry. I do like listening to other people. I wish Richard Burton was alive today. He could read all my poetry. Richard could. I'd allow him to.
Well, I'm sure Michael Sheen's not doing anything.
I might write one of them. Somebody said to do a poem about Michael Sheen, and I might send it to him. See?
Yeah, do it. Definitely tweet him. He likes a bit of Twitter, Michael Sheen.
I tweet him, Mike, and I write a poem about him, Mike, because you're a bit like the two of I did the Richard Burton one and Anthony Hopkins. I put them on the site website, and it's quite obvious that Richard Burton is more popular than Anthony Hopkins by the look of it, because Richard Burton had 400 likes and Anthony only had 399. But they love them, you know. They voice the voice. That's what it is, the voice and the way they present it. And I think any poetry, if it's presented nicely with the right voice, the right tone, it actually changes it altogether.
Well, I mean, I think you have to do Michael Sheen now.
I'll have a crack.
And then Rob Brydon then, and you finished the Port Talbot loop then.
That's right.
It's all done.
What do you call it? The four of them, the four musketeers.
Or the four horsemen, however you want to. Yeah.
The four horsemen of the steelworks.
That's right. Yeah.
Anyway, give us another one. Come on.
All right then. Shall we? Well, I'll tell you, we'll have a. I mentioned blackberry picking, so let's have a look at blackberry picking.
Blackberries, yeah.
No. All right, here we go then. All right.
Yes.
The old man knew every nook and cranny, like he sensed the harvest in his heart. This crumpled plastic bag whipped from pocket, and he set to them. He smiled and rhymed to claim his cutch, peeling the black pearls from stalks like butter, while I concentrated on my steady hand, not to crush the fruit to mush. I danced around spiders, thorns and unwanteds, hunting the perfect brunettes, their ebony gold shining softly upon my cardinal palms, filling my bag to brim. We crossed street and field, bridge and rail, my hands now ordained with scrapes and scores, the battle scars of our pursuit laid bare around the pouch we grasped. In later years, the old man struggled on the hills to home. His step became a shuffle, his back bending like a clock sweep hand, while we'd rush back to Nan to reveal our onyx swarm that she'd wash and cook and swaddle with pastry, while Grandad and I got set to hunt once more. Yeah.
You mean, you shut your eyes and listen to it, and you're there, aren't you? You know, the thorns, with us it was Wimbreys, the Wimbrey Mountain we called it, and we'd go up there with our biscuit tins, my mother and the kids. She'd make jam sandwiches, and there was a beautiful spring up there, so you didn't want for water. And you just sit in the bushes, picking them, eating them. You'd be all blue around the mouth. You'd have a bad stomach when you came home, and then you sell them for £0.50 a pint. My mother would make the tarts, 3 or 4 tarts, and then you'd sell the rest, like, you know what I mean, and you'd have a couple of bob, complete snooker, like sixpence a game, like, and so you'd have like 5 out of £0.50, 2.5 hours of snooker out of £0.50. But yeah, you know what I mean. That's what I like about it. It tells the story, and I think it's great. I do. I absolutely do. I do. I love it.
Thank you. No, I mean, it's like I said, it's a lovely medium, and I think it's hopefully will long continue. And you're right, you know, there's rappers now and lyricists and all these guys that are carrying it forward and creating new versions of it, new styles of it.
Yeah.
And you know, it's wonderful, but and it's something that ties us, it binds us to a place. Mm-hmm. And it's quite funny because even now, if I'm driving around and I see something, and I mean, probably it's the same with you with Kyra, you know, and you stop and you go, I wrote about that.
That's right.
And in my book, I'm tied to that forever now. And that's a lovely feeling.
Of course it is. You know, I mean, I've had many people again, I don't even know who they are. I did one when I grew up with the blacksmith in Kyra, Glen David. You know what I mean? I thought I'd like to do a poem about somebody from Kyra. Now he was a British boxing champion. He was a champion blacksmith of Britain. he was a judge in the Bilthwells and places like that. He used to judge all the horses. He used to go abroad, right? A lovely man. I used to spend hours in his workshop, in his forge with him in Cairo. So I thought, I'll write one. I just put it on my site, on my page. And then somebody from my stake picks it up. And then I got his son then get in touch with me. I've just read this poem, Arthur. I said, well, it's yours. Have it. Have it for the family. So, and you just give it to him, but it's nice, He said, thank you for doing it. I said, well, it's yours, It's only 20 minutes for me. It is, It's I don't take long to write them, as you know, but yes, I'd like to think perhaps in 50, 60, 70 years that somebody will pick the book up or the books and think, I like that. That was it's like the Victorian mining I write about. People have got in touch and said, was it really like that, Arthur? I said, well, obviously I've researched it. Of course it was. I've seen the pictures. It's like John Wake's things of books about Cardiff, the cruel streets. Like if you show them books to people from Cairo, do you understand me?
Yeah.
They'd read them. Dude, did this happen down there? In Cardiff in the Victorian time, look at it, they're hanging people in the street. I said, yeah, that's the way it was. Because you couldn't travel, you were in the village. The village was the village. There's nothing outside the village really, was there, except Porthcawl, Aberavon, on the club trip. But when I joined the police, I had to catch a bus from Cairo to Maesteg, a bus from Maesteg down to Bridgend, then I had to walk from Bridgend down to the headquarters. I was 15 the first time. And it felt like 10 miles I walked. When I look back at it now, it's like 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Everything was so big and vast. It's not anymore.
No.
You can jump on a train in Cairo. Cardiff in 20 minutes.
The world is a smaller place now. I think the world is small. The world is a smaller place.
Oh, exactly. It's unbelievable. It's like Karen, our daughter's in Singapore. We talk to her most days like this. She's expecting now in December. So God knows when we'll see the baby. Like you might not see the baby till it's 21. I don't know. Might have a beard like you. When I say who are you? I'm your grandson. Good God, I wish you've grown. But there we are. Anyway, I'll give you another one. Another nice memories of Cairo. I call it the weekly card school.
Okay.
Albert Street, Cairo. Now, did you ever see a weekly card school?
No.
Listen to this.
All right.
Now, every Sunday, after the pub in the morning, there'd be a card school up the top of Albert Street. My granny lived in 2 houses from the top, right? And at the top was the pine end of the streets, and then you had the colliery. You walked up to the colliery, and you'd have a card school there every Sunday. My dad used to play now and again, but my mother used to stop him, right? Because they'd have to have lookouts, looking out for the police, and they'd pay you. See, they'd pay you, give you £6. So obviously, I used to be a lookout. See what you make of this. Weekly card school, Albert Street, Cairo. Always on a Sunday, around about 9, a card school would open just down from the mine. The deck would come out. Miners they'd gather, now and again, including my father. Lookouts required to watch for the coppers. My brothers and I would take up the offer. Strategically placed on banks upon eye, a whistle the warning should coppers pass by. The cap would come out, coins were thrown in, the gambling began, kith versus kin. I spotted some coppers running fast to abreast. I whistled the warning, there'd be no arrests. Quickly the coin and the cap they were gathered, gamblers bolting like horses untethered. After the warning, we'd hide in the grass, covered by ferns as the coppers ran past. Later that day, we get our reward, a tanner each. Not bad, we all thought. You saved the day, they tell us all three. The whistle you blew got us all off scot-free. Same time next week, if you fancy it, boys. If you do a good job, it may be 2 bob. Today's generation don't know what they've missed. growing up in Cairo, behaving like this. Coppers and miners like hounds and hares, watching in the grass as Max sings, I was there. So that's what would happen. You'd see a policeman, you go, and they be gone.
So you were actually the original poacher turned gamekeeper then?
Exactly. Yes. Yeah. I tell you another story about that. You mean it's so funny, right? Because I worked where I grew up. I was a DS up there on a DC, so I knew everybody. And I was in the office there one day, and they rang up the city office. Oh, they're stealing coal up at the screens, right? It's like 4 o'clock in the afternoon, a day like today. So Bob Bassett, the Bobby, came up. He said, "Can I borrow you the car, Arthur?" I said, "What's the trouble?" Oh, I said, "I'll take you up now." So up we go in the car, right?
Mm.
And there's 4 of them on top of a 20-ton truck, right? Bagging it up, right? And we walked up quietly. We were hiding behind the steam pipe. And Bob was going, "Come on, let's grab him." I said, "Leave him alone now." I knew the 4 of them, see? I knew him. And I said, "Leave him bag a few more ton, 100 because he carry on." I was in school with the 4 of them. And they bagged about 4 big bags and they were chucking it off. And then I poked my head up, see? And I go like a strum. "All right, boys." And they, no, like statues who stop.
Yeah.
They go. And they gone, right? They gone, yeah, right. They gone, yeah, right. But we knew. I said to Bob, "Don't worry." I said, "You know who they all are, Bob. Christ, you know, there's no problem." And he got all the bags. So all that coal then would be taken back to the police station and put in a cell. Because number 1 cell in the police station was like the face underground. It was. As soon as you open the door, you're all this dust. There must be about 2 ton in there. Unbelievable. And they used to give it to the policemen. And so whoever had coal burning fire, they said, you know, have it like. But that's a story again. Like, I mean, it's like if everything stopped, you know, sort of like charades.
Frozen in time.
Huh?
Frozen in time.
They still talk with the boys I see, still talk about it. Oh, they go, "Remember that time, Arthur, you caught us up on it?" I remember it, but who can forget it? Like, but you know, but no nastiness, no animosity, you know, nothing at all. That's the way it was. Everybody knew everybody, and you couldn't get away with much. Unbelievable it was. But yeah, that's the weekly card school, which was a regular thing. They changed the location, obviously, you know, because of the police. But brilliant. I always remember my on a Sunday morning, like before they went to the pub and stuff, my mother said to my father, "I'm not playing cards, Billy, I'm telling you now." You never, unbelievable. He's terrified of my mother, he was. But here we are. Have we got another one, Everett?
Yeah, I'll have a look. What have I got you?
I pulled another one out again.
So yeah, I've got one. Yeah, I've got this is this tells the story of growing up really, and it tells a story of sort of why I became a writer. I think I mentioned last time that my father was a poet. I wrote some lovely poetry.
Have you still got his poetry, Ross?
I have. I'm checking with him at the moment. So
I got you.
If you can find it, I'll bring it next time and I'll read some of it.
Because a friend of mine's brother wrote poetry. He's passed away now, obviously, but Alan's got his poetry. It's very dark, and Alan said, "Will you have a look at it one day?" I said, "Yeah." So I'm waiting for that, but it's very dark poetry apparently. Yeah. So I'll have a look at that. Like, and if there's anything in there I can pick up on, I will. Like.
Yeah, no, there's he's got it tucked away somewhere. There's some lovely pieces in there. I mean, you know, there's a very nice one about Wales and when we went to live in South Africa for a while when I was about 6. And he wrote about the idea of exile, you know, leaving your homeland, and it's a lot like your style of writing as well. It's very authentic, very genuine, very this is what happened, and so there's a nice piece about me and my sister as well. So yeah, I'll have to dig them off him because if I can get them off him, next time we do something like this, I'll read one of them.
That's right, lovely.
Good to do, but
brilliant.
Yeah, let me read this now for you quickly, and this is called "Dear Father," and it explains why that, I sort of got into writing, because he did nothing but encourage me to appreciate words, lyrics, writing, and in any form. So, dear Father, I remember those nighttime tales, the yarns of headless horsemen, and of a dragon, flameless and caved in Blue Mountain's rocky den. Landscapes born from your reading to fill my spirit's hunger. I remember the aching hanging words of your poet's vinyl cast, long before I lived them or added his word stock to my own. The musical ballads you shared, carved out in spiral raven trails. Diamond's gull still calls me, that perfect canorous homily to the self that asked me fly and grasp. There was a burden to its message, a challenge to drink in learning's cuts and find yourself within a parable. When needed, you placed a trumpet in my youthful pleading hands to allow expressions dance and embolden me, urging me wash the listening in my brass-built shapes. You shared with me your poetry, your elegant verses and runes of us, where you talked about our lives, our families' tales shaped like paean, in the rhyming sonnet modes that escape my marker. It is with little wonder my stylograph is drawn to you once more, trying to word the wordless, to thank you for the life you shaped for me. But I fail again to render rightful praise, because I am because of you. For Dad.
Lovely, lovely. Has he listened to that?
Yes.
What did you think of it?
He was very touched by it. It was I pulled well, I pulled a swift one on him actually, because he came down when I launched the book Driftwood, which is the last one I did. I think, no, was it? Yeah. And we all sat there, and it was an amazing night actually, because my English teacher, Mark Jeffries, who was again, so important to me growing up and understanding poetry, and really drove my enthusiasm for it as well. He came down as well, and I dedicated the book to Mark. And he wrote the foreword for it, but he didn't know, and I dedicated the whole book to him because, without him, again, I wouldn't have done all this. And so I said to Mark, here's the book. Pick a poem from the book that you would like to read if you want to at the launch night. I said, I'd be honored if you would read one of my poems. And he was like, yeah, of course. And then he came back to me the day before, and he said, if you don't mind, he said, I'd like to read Dear Father. And I said, right. I said, yeah, I haven't got a problem with it. And he said, oh yeah, he said, absolutely. He said, that's the one I want to read. He said, I think it's powerful, and he did a much better job of reading it than I did. But it was a wonderful night. So my father sat there and got a bit emotional, and
like they do.
Yeah, and I mean, it was, again, I mean, it probably is that lean more into authenticity. The Headless Horseman is mentioned because he would read me, The Legend of Sleepy Hollow at night, and Roy Rogers and the Riders of the Range. There was a story of them, the cowboys with the Headless Horseman.
Mm.
And the Dragon in the Blue Mountains. I still got that book here now. It was a little blue book like that about a dragon that lived up in a mountain, and the villagers were terrified of him. And one day it rained or the snow came to put his fire out. And all the people in the village went up to try and help him, dry him out to get his fire back. So all those stories and all those words that we listen to and we absorb. And I'm still Sleepy Hollow mad now. I'm still loving movies and audible stories of it. But it's great. But again, it kind of goes back to what you were saying earlier, that those little snippets of time, those little bottled perfect moments of time.
Oh, yeah.
You can't fault them.
I passed 11 plus to go to the grammar school. Only two of us passed in the school. Now my father was very ill at the time, and we had to move the bed downstairs. He was in the parlour. He was, and it was the morning of the results, and we went to school. Mr. Maddox, was the headmaster. It was a big thing then. You're there in assembly, and he said, right, got the results of the 11 plus. He said only two have passed, and he called our names, and he had us up, in front there. And he said, right, go home and tell your parents. So me and David Gage, we lived near each other, me and Dave. We were best friends, obviously. And David ran past our house to his mother, and I ran into the house. My mother there, she was in the kitchen. I said, "Oh, Mum, I passed 11 plus." She said, "Go and tell your father." So my father's in the bed. You're not very well, right? And I'm sitting on the side of the bed with him. And he said, "What are you doing home?" I said, "I passed 11 plus, Dad, to go to the grammar school." Do you know what he said to me? What do you think? "Oh, that's going to cost us a few bob." That's what he said, right? And I thought nothing of it.
Yeah.
That's my dad, because that's who he was. He had fabulous handwriting. He's a very clever man, my father, very intelligent. He had beautiful handwriting, right?
Mm.
And anybody in the village who wanted a letter written, they'd come to my father. I used to watch him writing them, right? He had beautiful handwriting. But he wasn't a learned man. He was more of a physical man. He wasn't very big, sinewy, but, learned us how to chop sticks properly, learned us how to put the coal away properly, learned us how to do this properly, learned us how to play snooker. He was more, what's the word again? He was definitely proud of us, but he would never ever say he was proud of you, but you knew he was.
Yeah.
You knew he was. He didn't have to say it. You could tell by his expressions.
Yeah.
How he was sort of proud of us all, and like my mother was as well. But they were like chalk and cheese. My mother, see him, and they were chalk and cheese, like. But no, fabulous memories. And if I could only go back, I go back tomorrow.
Mm.
You know what I mean? My upbringing set the stall for my life. I was one of 16 cadets. I was way ahead than most of them in worldly wise, I call it.
Yeah.
Which I don't think our kids have got today. I think this is why a lot of our youngsters get into a bit of a mess, and they can't cope with it.
Mm.
Whereas years ago, like you were brought up, times are hard, and this could be your life, and this is how you got to get through it. I think today now youngsters, they're on the internet, they're on this dating sites and this nonsense, and once something happens, they can't cope with it. It's sort of the whole world have collapsed.
Mm.
It's like my father and mother said to me, if we ever make a mistake, don't worry about it. We'll support you. But if we do anything sort of out of the box, you can look out. And that's what we told our two children. Look, you make mistakes, no problem. And that's the way they've gone through life. And I think it stood them in good stead. You know what I mean? Because Chris was born in he's 40, Karen's 30, 37. So, you know what I mean? They were in a period again, which was of change.
Yeah.
Like 1980 to right through, was a tremendous change to me coming up in the 50s.
Yeah.
You're talking about 30 odd years. So, yes, it's nice to look back at your childhood.
Yeah.
Because at our age now, perhaps that's all we've got. I don't know.
Well, I mean, no, I think there's more. I mean, for someone like yourself.
I got 30 years to look back.
Well,
you know me.
I'm still waiting for my invite to your 21st birthday party, Arthur.
No, it's you know what I mean. It's like anything else. You go through these phases, and it's gone in a flash.
Mm.
And you know what I mean. I wouldn't change my life one bit. I got a few things wrong me, but you know what I mean. I look at some people and I think, Christ, you're well off, basically. You know what I mean. I've lost a lot of mates young. So yeah, you mean you got to take the rough with the smooth, as my father used to say. You take the rough with the smooth.
I remember one of the best pieces of advice I ever got was when I was young. I was learning the trumpet. I started playing jazz and all that sort of stuff. And I used to love it. I was in a Glenn Miller type swing band, and it was really cool. And I remember one of my other teachers. I remember Jeff Ryan was the music teacher. He used to conduct the orchestra, the school orchestra, and all that. He was an amazing guy. Looked a bit like Fozzie Bear, big hair, big beard. We used to call him Fozzie Bear actually, but I hope he doesn't see this. And I remember him saying to me once, and it was one of the best pieces of advice, and I held it forever. I still know it now. And he said, we were all practicing. He said, right, he said, just remember one thing. He said, if you're going to make a mistake, he said, make sure it's massive. And we all looked at him, and it was like, why? He said, because nobody notices the little ones.
Right,
So if you're going to do it, make sure it's worth it.
I brought the violin home one day.
Oh.
My father said to me something like, Susie, so you would have got a machine gun in, have you?
Mafia.
And when I started playing it, he said, I prefer if you had a machine gun.
Oh.
What a racket.
Of all the musical instruments, that one is just completely unforgiving. You're either awful or you're brilliant.
I could play Twinkle Twinkle Little Star. I'm quite good at that.
There we are. Maybe you do. Next time now you could do that.
Nothing else. And I could rosin the bow with him.
Well, it's like talking a snooker cue, isn't it? That's all it is.
Yeah.
Right, buddy. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you again.
No problem.
Thank you for the poems and the stories.
It's been enjoyable again, Ross, and it's nice to do. And like I say, it breaks the day up, and as long as people enjoy it, it's the main thing.
Yeah, well, they can let us know, and like I said, I'm sure we'll come up with something that we can sit down again and trawl through memory lane.
I'll dress up in my war uniform next.
All right.
Like all right. Dad's army. Somebody said me, can you write a poem about the Dad's army?
Yeah. Don't tell him your name, Pike.
Huh?
Don't tell him your name, Pike.
That's right. Don't tell him your name. Yeah, that's brilliant. Anyway, as long as you're happy with it.
Yeah, mate. Wonderful. I will be in touch. Great talking to you, and take care. I'll speak to you soon.
Thank you very much. Thank
Cheers,
you, Ross.
buddy.
Ta-ra, buddy. Ta-ra, buddy.